Good morning. It is February 24th, 2026. As I always say when I open up the reading, um, this message will find you when you need it and or pass it to somebody. It doesn't matter. Messages are the messages are the messages. And we're going to use the ARC Animal Tarot and Oracle deck. Um, the unicorn was one I pulled out a few days ago. I'm gonna leave the unicorn out, but it feels like it wants to stay out. Again, I'm Lisa Maxwell. Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Good morning, good morning. Or whatever time of day. It obviously is morning here. Hope you are well. Oh, we already have a card coming over. The Page of Cups, the alligator. Alligators are super resilient. They've been around for millennia. They are very stealthy. And so it's interesting. This is the Page of Cups, surprising insights, artistry coming up for air. So they can stay underwater for a really long time before coming up for air. And when they do, usually it's because there's something that they want. The Page of Cups is messages about your emotions. So there might be, the alligators are creatures of the water. So if there's something, and the emotion, the cups are the suit of water. If you are feeling that there are emotions that are coming up for air, then those emotions are coming up to now. Also, this is like heart. I'm feeling heart. Our emotions, our heart, our passions are, it's coming up to invite in that element of logic that would help to help us make sense of how we feel. Sometimes our emotions can be overwhelming, right? And this is what came up. The Eight of Cups was the message in yesterday's reading. And as always, I meditate further on the messages. So one of the things that came up for me in my meditations on the Eight of Cups was about how we handle emotional disappointment. The Tower card came prior to that. The Tower has been in the past 3 readings so far. It hasn't showed up today, but in that how do we handle emotional disappointment? Do we come up for air and then, a page is an immature expression of the court cards in the minor arcana. So it brings messages. So the page can be a little bit. I'm with the coming up for air. Like I'm kind of getting a vibe of the Page of Air, sort of mixed in here, especially with an alligator in this particular deck. So I almost kind of feel like the Page of Swords is also here, which is a little brutal in terms of the delivery of truth. So those emotions that are coming up can invite like this predatory type of energy. So in the face of emotional disappointment, which the Eight of Cups is also that, I didn't really speak to that very specifically, but how do we respond in the face of emotional disappointment or emotion? It's like, does it become the Tower moment? Does it become the breaking down of everything because we are not able to fill ourselves emotionally? An alligator is definitely okay this is a survivor, and obviously, like, it's been around for millennia. So an alligator, are we moving? Do we want to continue behaving from this kind of like immature emotional responses, or can we you know, start, to recognize, this is where, again, I keep hammering this, getting better coping skills in order to, when we do come up for air, when our emotions come up, to be reviewed, for us to introduce logic, to kind of look at them without judgment, to look at the way these, and when we're in a meditative state, that container that we create for ourselves on a daily basis allows us to witness and consider the way we emotionally respond to things. And when we are emotionally disappointed by something external that we have expected to fill our, to provide our emotional well-being, is that even reasonable? Reason, there's that logic again, coming up for air, adding some reason in. Is that actually reasonable? Or do we need to start, filling our own emotional needs without all of the, how much expectation are we putting on external things that are not us? Work situations, our close, our intimate relationships, our families, our friends, the world around us. Do you expect the world around you to fill your emotional belly? Are we behaving in a predatory way? Do we end up kind of being predatory, and then, biting and grabbing anything that we can, waiting for the next thing to kind of fill us emotionally? Some questions. Let's see what else the reading has. Because we've got to start learning to do that for ourselves. Not, obviously not in a predatory way, but start to add that coming up for air. Like, how do I react when things don't go well for me and I don't feel good? Do I, look for the cheap thing to like fill my need? Or can I wait? Because, an alligator waits for the right thing to come along too. Like, everything has its light and dark aspects. Everything has its light and dark aspects. I don't think I actually mentioned that this deck is by Bernadette King. I always like to make sure I give credit to the people who created these wonderful tools for us to, tools of understanding and to create discernment. What's does Spirit have for us today? That one card certainly gave us a lot. I'll take this one. Oh, the Otter, the Six of Cups. So we have a lot of cups on the board so far. We have the Page of Cups, and we have the Six of Cups. The Six of Cups is reunion, reminiscing, inner child. And then the Otter is a very playful, invites a playful energy. So as opposed to the alligator, this is a very different energy that's coming in. So, for me, what's coming up is just that, the feel of like when these kinds of feelings and emotions do come up, to kind of play with them, to, kind of, especially when, these might be feelings that are coming up about a former situation. We have Mercury going into retrograde. What's today, the 24th? Yeah, in like a couple of days, although Mercury's been in shadow, and it's Mercury in Pisces, retrograde. And so that's going to be a lot of feelings and a lot of subconscious stuff, which may have been coming up anyway. With this past eclipse, we just entered the eclipse corridor last week officially, but if you were a really sensitive person, you're probably feeling this earlier on than just last week. And it was such a significant eclipse because I really feel that it marks, and you can, check in with other astrologers, but I really feel that it marks, now that we're moving into these eclipses in the sign of Aquarius and Leo, that it really marks us finally moving into the, really officially into the age of Aquarius. And so these, ways of being independent, and, figuring out like how we do respond to ourselves and dealing with our own emotions and not expecting other people to fill our emotional cups. Is really important, because we have to be able to understand ourselves emotionally and our emotional needs, so we can stop expecting other people to fill that. We can work with people emotionally and to work in an interdependent way, but this kind of codependent stuff is way passe. We've moved out of that. But some of these relationships and some of these ways of being, some of these nostalgic kinds of things that a Six of Cups would invite us to reconsider. Again, kind of look at it in more of a playful, work with that an inner child, like understanding the inner child is, and where your emotional needs might be a little childish, again, and childish and immature. The page is an immature person in the courts. It's a messenger. It's usually depicted as a page is usually a young person anyway. That would be a runner, but it's not going to be the person who's making the decisions. And our child should never be the one that's making the decisions, but it certainly has a lot of information. Again, there's that page coming up, information, how have our relationships gone in the past, and kind of looking at it in a playful, like an appreciative manner, like, this is what I did in this situation, or this is kind of what that situation had to offer me. And instead of kind of like, again, being predatory and like biting off our own heads about things, just understanding that, that's where I was at the time. Don't use your current wisdom. I think I reposted something like this. Don't use your current wisdom to berate yourself for what you were. You did the best you could at the time, and you've learned, and take like add that element of air, learn from it, and know that wasn't the end all be all. You're going to have other opportunities. Again, looking at things in a more curious kind of fashion. An otter is a curious creature. Another card that came up for me in a different reading for myself was the fox. It's have that sense of curiosity, because that's going to keep things playful. That's going to keep things coming towards you. And, if you want other opportunities, well, being playful and being energetic and, and being interested in yourself and the things that you're doing is going to draw other people towards you. Being loving, again, being playful, being forgiving. What would you do with a child who is kind of, expressing themselves immaturely? You would be loving. You would be, curious, wanting to know more about what they're doing, what they're thinking, and guiding them. Treat yourself that way. Treat those young parts of yourself, those kind of just not super well developed parts of yourself. Don't, just because you're whatever, however old, doesn't mean that you're washed up. It means just that the fact that you're still on this planet means that you still have more to learn, So there's that page of Pentacles that came up. We've got another page. Again, this guy still has more to learn, despite the fact that he's been around for millennia, Ooh, and we have one more that came up. The Condor. Oh, the King of Swords. Oh, truth, final authority, brilliant mind. So this officially brings in that air. This is using this energy that coming up for air in a very, very a condor is also a predatory animal, but it's like, again, but this is more discerning. This is much more discerning. Looking at it from that 30,000 foot view. King of Swords is going to be looking at it and making discerning decisions, not, these kinds of judgy labeling, cut and dry. I mean, yes, and it's in its worst if it's being used irresponsibly or childishly. then it's going to be an energy that